3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub on the other side. Craig's trying to fire me up, trying to mess with me over my Tigers. Mess with me over my Tigers. I'm not going to let him unless he wants to give us. You know what? Hey, how about you give us Class A for a bag of baseballs? Is he under indictment yet for
I think the odds are good he'll be deported. I'm serious. I think it's sad as that is. I think the odds are reasonable he'll be deported. It could be the end of Class A. I mean, so yeah, we'll take your, Clark for Class A deal.
Come on now. I said a bag of baseballs. I didn't say number 2 prospect. Anyway, folks, welcome back to the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. MGoBlog Roundtable. Camp is underway. Michigan. Camp is in session. The fellas are out there and got our first glimpse. If you got a chance to see some of the video, you certainly have seen the roster by now. You heard Sharon talk about some of the physical changes and some of the guys at Big Ten Media Days out in Las Vegas. Early impressions, fellas. We got Craig Ross and Seth Fisher. I guess I should pleasantries first this morning. Seth, how are you this morning?
Happy pleasantry day. I'm ready to talk some weights.
Craig Ross, how are you this morning?
I'm fine. I'd just like to say, while I get a chance, that Tom Lehrer passed this week. And I don't know if anybody knows who Tom Lehrer is out there. Check him out if you hadn't. Maybe I'll mention him in the break, because this isn't really sports talk, but he was a fairly incredible human. So go on to sports. I wanted to pay my respects to Tom Lehrer.
I mean, if we're paying respects too, we should probably mention Greg Glenn, who
yes,
played for Michigan, and we didn't see him very long, but if you remember, Michigan got him because he was supposed to be the guy that made Jet better, right? He was Jet's friend, who was the glue guy, the go get it guy, the energy guy, and that's who he was for his next team as well. And I mean, when you think about losing somebody at that age, whose primary scholarship-worthy ability was making other people better, that's a big loss.
I agree. And he was playing reasonably well at Tulane. I think he still had a year of eligibility. I think he might have averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds last year. I talked to him once on Media Day, and I really liked him. I thought he was a really curious personality, but sort of naive and open and silly, and just a warm. I found him to be a very warm person. But so yeah, that I'm glad you mentioned that. It's awful. So
yeah,
Tom Lehrer was 97. Oh yeah, so that obviously not the tragedy that Glenn is. So
yeah. They said he died in a tragic accident. They didn't say. No other details were given. So yeah, definitely sharing the condolences there. Very, very, very rough segue. Talking about Michigan football and the weights, some of which were detailed by Sharon out in Las Vegas. He led off with talking about Bryce going from 215 to roughly 230 pounds, which I found significant because look, part of the game for Bryce is going to be running the football. I mean, if you want to talk about differences with Chip Lindsey and Sharon Moore, there are a few that really jump out. Chip is going to screen more. That's number one. I think that we know that for sure. He's going to screen more.
It couldn't screen less. So that's not saying much.
It'll be interesting how much more he's gonna RPO. How much will he RPO is the question. Because Sharon kind of laughed when I brought this up. I said, Sharon, you guys, you ran loaded boxes incessantly, and when teams sort of adjusted, you presented JJ as a threat to balance the box, but you still didn't always run them. You ran them some, but really to mostly establish the threat as opposed to running him. Right. And then he even talked about it at Big Ten Media Day. Seth, he said, yeah, JJ used to ask me to run, and I said, no, I'm not gonna run you. If you're gonna run your quarterback, you better have two, kind of thing. But I'm gonna run your quarterback. Well, Chip runs his quarterback.
Yeah.
Gets me back to another big difference, that being he runs his quarterback. Bryce going from 215 to 230. That's another part of the significance there, in my opinion.
Well, also, I mean, JJ was a smaller guy. And when it came down to, we saw them run JJ in games as a game plan, right? Remember the Penn State 2022 game? Penn State didn't know how to deal with it, right? We had these huge, and it's a huge thing for the running game. Remember how much it opened up for Edwards and for Corum as soon as they did that? And they had a point in 23. JJ was hurt, right? He had that shoulder. So every time you bang that shoulder, you're potentially losing a game of JJ for him to recover from that. So I understood why they kind of had to take that out of the offense again, but they're going to have it this year. And they're going to have Bryce be that, Devin Gardner type of player who's going to take a lot of hits, not the kind of hits in the backfield. You don't want those at all, right? That's really important with a young quarterback, is not get him lit up. But you can establish him as a run threat. Now, as far as screens and RPOs, I'm sure they want to do that. You don't have the option to do that if they're going to play man against you all day. And that's what they're going to do to Michigan. Until they have receivers who just can't be beat man to man, and they have and Bryce can show that he can beat those routes when he sees them, that's what everyone's going to do to us. So I think McCulley's going to be a big deal. Can he beat a Davison Igbinozian kind of player? Because if I was trying to play against Michigan right now, I would say put my biggest cornerback on McCulley and put 8 in the box and play man-to-man coverage and say, okay, Bryce, beat us downfield. And I think that's going to be the biggest question with Chip Lindsey, because what he did with Drake May is he took that and he said, okay, I'm going to hit you downfield in ways that you never imagined. I'm going to take routes that look normal, that don't look like they have any, like a route tree that doesn't look like it has anything that goes deep, right? And suddenly one of those routes in any time could turn into a deep route. And May would hit those consistently, but a lot of times they'd be just wide open. You get a double move on a guy who's expecting, who sees the rest of the route tree developing. And he's like, okay, I know what this is. This is, this is Portland. And then it's not Portland. All of a sudden, that guy's just going straight up the sideline or going straight down the hash, and that's what Chip Lindsey's offense likes to do. They want to hit those for big yardage, and then once you hit those a couple times, then they start playing, back on you. Then they start zoning up, and then when you got that space underneath, that's when this offense is really going to thrive, because Bryce can throw the ball hard, Bryce can run the ball. And the only problem, can he read weird zones? But he doesn't have to. He doesn't see if it's not there, he starts running. So that's kind of, I think, where this offense could take that next step. I don't think they're going to get very high, but that's when you get those potentials to, to RPO and to when you start messing with, their looks, right? If they want to do that to you, you can be like, okay, as long as you're not playing man, I can do this to you all day. So I think that's where that progression goes.
I'm skeptical that teams will come out and just play man if Bryce Underwood is a quarterback. A team that comes out and does that is just saying we lose. Because, if you're going to beat Michigan and a freshman quarterback, regardless of how talented he is, and I think he is uber talented, you're going to need to vary your defenses and play a lot of zone.
You better spy him because if he gets out of there, he could be running for a long time.
Yeah, no, I know. And that, I guess that, to the original point, I guess that's why you'd like him at, having more weight, and which makes it hopefully a little less likely to be injured. Perhaps the big difference, or the big thing to consider for Michigan, is who else do they have at quarterback? Now, it sounds, I kept hearing all summer that Mikey Keene wasn't even going to be ready, but I don't think that's true. I think he's going to be ready this fall. And I don't know. Do you know about the other guy at all? This Garcia?
Jake Garcia.
I know nothing about him.
He's an interesting story.
Okay.
Because he had like a whole odyssey to try to play during COVID. He was a California kid committed to USC who then transferred to Georgia, had to moved to between two different Georgia teams. Because like some famous coach convinced him to come out there, and it was a very reality TV kind of thing. After all that, he ends up at Miami, does start early in his career at Miami, and threw a lot of interceptions. That didn't work out. Went to Missouri, didn't play, and then went to ECU, and he was playing, but he, again, threw a lot of interceptions. So I don't know what you're going to get out of that guy. I think that he's there for depth. I think they looked at their spring, and they said, we only got Bryce Underwood and Jaden Davis standing right now. We need to add some depth, and that's what they did with Jake Garcia.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, depth at quarterback is obviously important for Michigan. I mean, I'm not predicting Underwood gets hurt. You'd like for him to be healthy all year, but that there has to be some natural reticence in the coaching staff to just have him start running around with the ball. It would seem to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the JJ year. I think he was ranked right around JJ that year that they came out. So,
okay,
older guy, gives you some more experience in the room. You'd like to have some actual game experience other than Mikey Keene, and that's what that's what he gives you. So,
I think that Mikey Keene's going to be the floor option, and Mikey Keene is a much higher floor than I think we got in total from Davis Warren last year. Davis Warren at times looked like a quarterback, but he was just not ready to play last year, and you could even see it in the bowl game. With his last play, he has a clean pocket and a couple guys to throw to, doesn't see it, abandons the pocket, ends up 19 yards behind the line of scrimmage at the sideline. I think that people are underestimating how bad the quarterback play got last year, and Mikey Keene could get you to
estimating that.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback play was awful last year. I mean,
maybe outside of Michigan, maybe people like outside of Michigan are like, you guys think Bryce Underwood's going to come and be the savior. I'm like, no, we don't. We think Bryce Underwood's going to get us to a C or a D plus, and that's going to be gorgeous from what we've been living in. You don't understand where we're coming from right now. I think it's very interesting because I've been interacting with some Oklahoma people who just got John Mateer, right? And they are all about John Mateer. They're like, oh man, we just got, they think they got the last guy from Washington State. But I don't know why I'm going against everybody. No one else seems to think this too, but you go and watch that film, they were just picking on Mountain West cornerbacks. All they do is every single time someone rolls down, he's got an NFL receiver out there and he throws to him one-on-one. And man, I think Davis Warren could have looked good against some of those quarterbacks as well.
I can't get with that, Seth. I think
he's got moxie. He's got moxie is what Mateer's got.
Hit the ground running for Oklahoma.
You think he's going to hit?
He's a Heisman candidate this year?
I don't know about Heisman candidate, but I think he's going to be successful. I think it's going to be a big problem for Michigan in that game. So
I think they're running into some.
Make him a Heisman candidate. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that's a very interesting coaching matchup because what does Michigan do? Right, they disguise everything. Right, you don't know who's going to pop into what zone. Well, their offense is the opposite of that. They're RPOing something, and you never know what they're RPOing. So it's like it's going to be kind of a cat and mouse between the two to see who can do that. But that offense has never really faced something like Michigan before. I'm really interested to see what happens when it does.
Yeah. So speaking of facing someone like Michigan, so they're going to be different. One of the things I find really interesting about these guys, and you sit and you talk to them, and they are so convinced that they just are not going to have any drop off in performance up front. I think they're going to be different in how they wreak havoc. I think it's going to come from the edges. I could see Derek Moore taking a big jump from his production last year to his production this year. Same with TJ Guy. I think the edges are going to really do their thing. On the inside, they're huge, and we can get into talking about the weights. But I just don't buy it. And I said this to the guys as I was sitting with them, as I sat with Rayshawn Benny and sat with D Moore and all these guys. I said, love you guys, but you can't tell me and have me buy that the production up front on the interior is going to be what it was with KG and Mason. That's not saying that it's not going to be good. Like, you can be good and not be KG and Mason, right?
Yeah.
That's not. Yeah. And they said, no, we're going to be just as good. We're going to be just as good. You watch.
I mean,
look at all the guys we have. We got all these guys. We got 6 dudes. And what you got to understand is we couldn't rotate as many guys. It's going to be like 23 with the number of guys that we can run in. We're going to always be fresh. We can play 2 or 3 snaps and then the next guy rolls in. We can play 2 or 3 snaps, then the next guy rolls in. And everybody we roll in is going to be 310, 315, 320 and fresh.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were like adamant. That's okay.
I mean, it's just like the screens thing, right? Like, hey, here's what we're going to be able to do to you now. We're going to screen you with Samaj Morgan. And it's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what other teams do about that. They're just going to lock you on the field, right? They're not going to huddle. And, most teams don't huddle anyway. So I think that this is the opposite of the quarterback position, where it's just like, okay, if you get to average, you're going to be like a huge difference from last year. No, Mason Graham and KG, those guys were the 2 of the best in the history of a program that has had a lot of history.
They were
the best. Yeah, I think that's fair. Go ahead. Yeah, I think that's fair.
All I can say is we played against Alabama last year without them and without 5 starters. True. And to me, I didn't see a lot of drop off.
You're right.
I mean, now I didn't see a lot of drop off, so I'm thinking I may be with Rashawn on this one.
I'm saying production from those spots.
And the other thing is, I think our linebackers are going to be better. You add the gain on the linebackers and the fact that I don't think there's going to be much drop off at defensive tackle. I think you're still looking at a defense that could be a rock pile. And going to be very, very difficult for offenses. And you've got a coach and a team that are now more copacetic. I think it's not unfair to say that last year there were some growing pains between the defense and the coach. And not blaming anybody for that. It's just
wait. So to be clear, they were very open book about that. Okay. Very open, but I mean, this was they are always very open with me on the Behind the Uniform series, which we just wrapped up, and it was more grueling to get it done this year than ever before, than the first 2 seasons, but very open book, and Rod especially. He said, "I'm gonna be clear with you. For half the season, we were bumping heads with Wink." He said, we were bumping heads. And he said, not in the disrespectful way, but, he was successful doing things his way coming from the NFL. And we were successful doing things our way, winning a national championship. And, he created the scheme, and then guys come in and take his scheme and they do it a different way. And it's like, who's right? And he said, it's more than one right. And so as you're getting to know one another, who wants to change what they do when both ways are right? As you're getting to know one another. And he said it took a minute for that mesh to happen, man. You're out there and you're kind of questioning changing what you do when you don't know the person telling you to change what you do, or someone's telling he's looking out at you doing it a certain way, and he's not used to someone doing it that way. He's like, well, that's not the way it's supposed to be done, and I'm the one that designed it, and it's just not working. Just not working. And it's not until they get to the middle of the season where it's like, well, wait a minute, fellas, we got to get on the same page. Now we've seen the things that aren't working. We've seen why. Let's talk this out. And it was really around the Indiana game where I think it was Derek Moore. He said he called it a keep it real meeting. He said we had a keep it real meeting where they called some things out about, hey, we need to get this right. We need to get that right. He said Wink was like, hey, well, what do you guys want to do? How do you like to do this? How do you like to do that? They got on the same page on some things. He said some players needed to listen to some things more. So, I mean, they got on the same page, and it was like Arrow was straight up. Arrow was straight up. He said it was just more a getting to know you thing than anything else. And once they did that, the rest was history.
Well, big picture, I mean, you go and you play Ohio State and Columbus, and last time I checked, they had a good offensive team. They did nothing in that game, nothing on offense. Then we play Alabama, also a good offense, good running game, a quarterback who's pretty good, although, erratic. They did nothing in that game. And in that game, Michigan was playing the JVs. So, and a lot of guys, and they're all back this year. So to me, I'm not, this notion that all of a sudden the middle of the defensive line is going to be a problem isn't really very obvious to me at all. I think they
no, it's not a problem. So let's not take what I said to the guys or this opinion and call not being Mason and KG a problem. It's saying not Mason and KG just means you're not the best all time. It doesn't mean you aren't good.
Yeah,
and that's that. So this is the different perspective, right? You're going from the best all time. Rayshon Benny's a star. Rayshon Benny has been grading out as a star for a long time. Trey Williams, they're talking about like he's a star. I went and watched his Clemson film, and I think that he's got a good. He's that guy you want to get out there, get like 4 plays, and get him off the field. But I don't know if you can stay on the field for 4 plays with Trey Williams on the field. So that's your front, right? Trey Pierce, I think, is a guy who's got real potential to blow up. I think not enough people are talking about him. Ike was playing really well at the end of last season. Right. Damon Payne gives you something that every single team would want, which is that guy cannot be doubled, right? That's just can't run on that dude, and that just takes everything off the table. And Eno Etta is up to 320 now. Etta's problem was he was getting doubled down. And I think that he was learning football as he goes. But now that guy's gained 35, 13, and 12 pounds in the last 3 off seasons. He's now a big, big dude. So you have a lot of options, right? That's 6 guys. Chippy and Uno might even be able to play too. You got 7 guys. Not to mention, you got Polly is 30-35. You got a lot of options you can go to there. And Derek Moore last year, I think, was hurt. I think Derek Moore was, when we talked to him, he brought it up and it was in our charting too, that he had more wins than anybody against his blocks, right? He was getting to the quarterback. The thing is, if you got to the quarterback in 2.5 seconds last year, Mason Graham and Kent Grant were already having a party, right? You get there and like, hey, look who showed up. Yeah, we're tearing a quarterback apart. Here, do you want an arm? We have an arm, right? Like you couldn't get any stats last year. This year, it's just going to look different. They're going to do that mush rush that they get from the Ravens all the time. That was the system, right? That's what we did with Mozzie and Hinton. And I think that the holes are going
to explain what a mush rush is.
That you're bigger than the offensive line is, and you just crush that pocket. You just got that, you're just slowly moving them backwards, right? So instead of trying to, break free and get around and get upfield and try to get to the quarterback and make a big mess, which also can work as long as you can work back to the quarterback. They just kind of collapse that pocket. And because they're so strong, that pocket collapses so quickly. And that just puts so much pressure on a quarterback. You have to be really, in your 5th or 6th year of the NFL to be able to stand in there and still make your reads when Trey Williams is, inches away from you and there's your teammate's helmet in between you. That's what I think they're going to do. We saw them play this way exactly in 2021. The only thing that comes out of that is that quarterbacks can escape sometimes. If your defensive ends are not consistently winning, so it's really going to be on TJ Guy and Derek Moore to be stars this year. And they might be, because we're going to go back to the system that made, Hutchinson's Hutchinson. He was going to be a star no matter what you did with him. But it was a system that made Ojabo look really good. And I think that's what they're going to try to go to this year.
Yeah, but do that, and can these guys, and I think the potential is really there. Does Derek Moore make the junior to senior year jump that Aiden made? I mean, it's a very similar circumstance, junior to senior year stat wise. Look at Aiden his junior year, and D Moore his junior year stat wise. Can he make a similar jump?
Yes.
I mean, Aiden got hurt. Aiden was playing at an All-American level, and then he got hurt in his junior year. We're not talking Aiden, but we are talking really good. We are talking better than Mike Mo, right? I think that
guys, they made this point. They made this point. They said if you go back and you watch last year's tape, and they said they did this all year. They said you go back and look at, and you kind of just made this point.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the number of wins that Derek Moore had. He said he just didn't have the stats that showed how often he won. He said a lot of his sacks wound up in the arms of Jay Stu or Mason or KG. They got a lot of his stats. He pushed a lot of sacks to other guys, but he was winning a lot.
Yeah.
And so, does he do those turn into his stats this year? And they're counting on those turning into his stats this year.
And there's a difference.
Go ahead.
Yeah. There's a difference between just like I'm saying, Rayshon Benny, you don't have to be Mason Graham to be one of the best to put out one of the better tackle years in Michigan history, right? So same kind of thing. Derek Moore is not going to have Aiden Hutchinson. That game against Ohio State, no one's going to touch that. That goes in one of the best performances by a football player relative to his competition in history. Right? That level is just a level that you only see once in a generation if you're lucky to live at that time.
Well, you just saw Mason Graham touch it.
Mason Graham got close. I would not say that there was Aiden Hutchinson is just completely different level in that game. I've never seen anything like that. And I think that was just you can't make those comps, but you can also say oh my God, Derek Moore is going to be very good. And I think that he was playing hurt last year for a chunk of the season when his grades went for my grading. My grading doesn't care about the stats, right? My grading is are you winning at the point of attack? And I saw the same thing. He was winning at the point of attack. Now, his grades went down a bit, and then he said it. He was injured. He was playing hurt last year. And then you saw him come out in the bowl game, and I was very glad that the NFL didn't notice the bowl game because he was absolutely destroying those. He was either winning or he was dominating. It just depended on whether he was going up against the guy who was going to be an NFL tackle and the guy who's not there yet, right? Anybody who wasn't, who was the tackle last year? Anyway, as long as he wasn't going against an NFL tackle, he was dominating. And when he went against an NFL tackle, he was still good. So you get that over an entire season, he's going to be, let's say, Brandon Graham level. Okay, that's a very high bar. Let's just be that. Let's not say Aiden Hutchinson.
Well, if he's at Brandon Graham level, they've got something for sure. But but the truth is, the reason why Michigan had problems last year was not the defense. Even although there were some blips in the early part of the season, as you pointed out, the problem last year was we had no quarterback and the offense was bad. And so I don't know what weight gains get you, coming back to the original thought about weight gains, get you on the offensive side, except for hoping to protect Bryce Underwood.
Yeah,
by being bigger.
It's if you get the improvement from the jumps from those edges. I mean, you don't need the guys on the inside to be on the level of Mason, and I don't expect them to be. I don't expect them to be. But I expect them to be really good. Just the numbers, the war of attrition. I think that they are going to be very, very tough. I do buy that they won't be able to be worn down just by the sheer numbers and the numbers of how many guys they can roll in and the numbers by how big they are. We didn't even talk about guys that we may not see. How about the size gain for a guy like Travis Moten, who's up to 315?
You know what he was listed at in high school? 250. He's gained 65 pounds since the last time somebody put down a number on him. Now, I think he was, his spring weight was already kind of on the way, and we knew that he was a lot bigger than that. But yeah, Travis Moten's 315. They have Benny Patterson at 270. They also listed him at defensive tackle. But can I tell you what bothered me about? There's two things that I really saw in this roster that bothered me. First is on those edges you were talking about. You want to talk about those edges numbers. Cameron Brandt took number 9. What are you doing? TJ Guy is wearing number 4, which looks like number 9. Derek Moore is wearing number 8, which looks like number 9. Some of us have to chart with bleary eyes all fall. What am I supposed to do here? We had 42, we had 91, we had 8. Perfect. We were all set. And then now he's wearing 9 and TJ Guy's wearing 4. This really gets my goat. I think you want to take a break, so I'll save my other one for the break.
I'm just glad Seth has his priorities in line.
I'm looking out for me here and the fans who got to look down on that field and know who it was who took the quarterback's head off.
All right. We need to get to a break. We'll be back on the other side here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
Yeah, the other thing you might want to talk about is Blake Frazier's 295, Sam. I don't know if that's going to do it.
Well, that was always the issue for him, or an issue for him, is because I think he played at about 240 in high school.
Yeah. We were talking about that earlier, that he doesn't look, when you're saying he's 300, he didn't look 300. He looks like he's 260, 295. I buy 295. That seems about right. Can he move people? Will be the question. Fall camp. Well,
Babalola is already 315.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're talking about what are you going to break camp with, I'm not sure you want to break camp because those Oklahoma defensive ends are big and they're good, right? They got a couple Cam Brandt kind of guys out there. So, I'm not sure you're going to survive with 295 Blake Frazier. And I wasn't expecting that from him. I mean, set the injury aside. I think we were talking about him because, that's an X factor option. But his timeline was always going to be 2026 in my mind, right? When I looked at him and I was like, there's a guy, he's light on his feet, smart, dad played here, knows what it takes. That's a guy that's going to be big value to us in 3 years. It's not been 3 years, right? So I when you said that, I was like, okay, I'd love that. But now he's coming in at 295, and we're going to Norman, Oklahoma. So you might just have to, play the Evan Link game until Babalola's ready.
How good is Oklahoma? I mean, they weren't great last year. I mean, they had
They're
trouble.
They're Michigan.
Similar. Okay.
They're Michigan. They're great defense. Their hope was that, they brought in a great defensive mind to replace a great offensive mind. And the idea was that, the fall off on offense was not going to be so bad until they got to, while the defense got good. And last year, they just missed each other. Last year, the offense, they had quarterback play almost as bad as ours.
Okay.
And, the receiver room got decimated because of that. They have talent. They've spent a lot of money in the portal. They were They were overpaying for everybody. And so they held on to a lot of their team, and they have, that's why they're talking about John Mateer so much. Why we're so excited about Bryce Underwood, but they're really talking about Mateer like he's going to be a Heisman candidate. And that's because to them, this is the guy who's going to give them the offense that pays off that defense. But that defense is just, it's built differently than ours. I don't want to get into the super X's and O's, but the idea is they're going to attack. And then the next level is watching that attack, and they're going to respond to it. And then they got a safety who just makes you right no matter what you do. So if that system is still working, they are really going to be hard to move the ball against for everybody.
Yeah.
Back on radio in about 30 seconds, guys.
Too bad. I wanted to swear in relation. It's a story of Tom Lehrer. Do you guys know who Tom Lehrer is at all?
I vaguely knew he's a singer. That's
yeah. He was a math prophet at Harvard and then later Santa Cruz, and he wrote songs, and they were brilliantly funny and acerbic, and very important part of my childhood. But one of his songs was sampled by a group called 2 Chainz. Have you ever heard of 2 Chainz?
Coming back on the radio, guys. Sorry to cut your story, Craig, but we are back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. Before we get back to the MGoBlog Roundtable, I want to tell those of you who are in the market for a new vehicle, you should get on board with Brighton Ford. And folks, you need to take advantage of this deal right now, because Brighton Ford is the ultimate destination for your new car or truck. And the summer sales event is going on for a little while longer, courtesy of Ford. And it's a great time to buy. Through the end of the day, well-qualified lessees can lease a 2025 Ford Escape for as low as $243 a month, or lease a 2025 Bronco Sport for as low as $239 a month. Both of them only $3,500 down for 36 months, 0% financing, no down payment, 0 payments for up to 90 days on select vehicles. Plus, get a complimentary maintenance plan for 2 years. Just call 1-800-NEW-FORD or see dealer for details. All right, fellas. And so getting back to the weights. So we talked about the lines, and you mentioned Andrew Babalola up to 315. Out, and you're looking at some of the receivers who have put on some pounds. So how about the other Andrew Marsh, getting up to 190? Kendrick Bell, who is a sneaky pick for a breakout player, because he did not participate in the spring, had some a little cleanup to get done in the off season. But I think Kendrick could be a sneaky addition in terms of the production at that position, along with Donovan McCulley, that can help out to give Michigan some size and versatility at the receiver position. So he has added weight, and Kendrick is up to 205. So you've added some size in the receiver position as well.
Absolutely. You stole the words out of my mouth with with Kendrick Bell. We were talking in the break about how Blake Frazier is, was supposed to be like a 2026 ready. I think that we were circling for Kendrick Bell because, he came in as a quarterback and had a lot, played in Missouri and whatnot, that this was going to be the first year that I was going to expect to see much of anything from him. And to see him up to 205, which is close to the ideal size that you wanted him to be for the type of player and the height he has. I mean, that's a guy. They don't talk about guys when they're hurt, right? Even if you're getting something cleaned up or whatever, they just don't talk about them. So I think that's definitely a sleeper pick for this year. Somebody who's got a lot of ability, right? And I comped him to Donovan McCulley coming out of high school. Because that was another quarterback who had a lot of athleticism, and that Michigan fans were all familiar with McCulley by that point. But McCulley didn't really break out until his third year, until 2023. And I think that Kendrick Bell could be have that kind of McCulley season where, he starts, it's just showing stuff, right? Like, okay, you can throw it to that guy. You also you mentioned I mentioned McCauley. He's up 12 pounds from last year at Indiana. So he's up to 215. And then Freddie Moore is up 10 pounds. So he's up to 191. It's still not quite to what you want him to be, but he was getting bodied a bit last year. He was getting a little Roy Roundtree as a what was he, a sophomore last year or redshirt freshman last year? So he's another one sneaky pick for someone who might have a much better season this year and showed you some things in the bowl game. And then Andrew Marsh. Yes. Up 15 pounds, because what was the thing with Andrew Marsh? Andrew Marsh was the guy who played a lot bigger in high school than he is, right? And he was like, oh, okay, you're 175 pounds. That might work in high school. But, you're going from Texas high school ball to the Big Ten. That's a big difference. And you're going to face bigger players. You're going to face 225-pound safeties. And what are you going to do at 175? Well, at 190, that's a little bit more plausible that his game might translate.
Well, I would just say what I've been saying all along, that, and maybe these weight gains will be useful for wide receivers. I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm not concerned about wide receiver. I mean, wide receiver is going to be fine, and I'll keep saying that until it isn't. The issue for Michigan is going to be their quarterback play, which I'm optimistic about, but more so, what does the offensive line look like? Yeah, if the offensive line gives them a plausible run game, if they can pass pro at all, this is going to be a really good offense. If they can't, it's a problem, and it ain't on, and it's not going to be on the backs of wide receivers not getting open or not catching the ball. They're going to get open. They're going to catch the ball if it gets there. My opinion. I know that's a minority opinion. I know Brian doesn't agree with me on this one, but
Sam, what's your offensive line right now? If you would,
so I'm still gonna go Crippen at center. My guards are El Hadi and Afobe. Obviously Sprague at right tackle and
Jalen Hoffman, left tackle. He can do everything.
Competition, man. And I really don't know at this point. I don't know at left tackle. I'm not. I can't call it. I think that even at the 295, I want to see how he handles that. How he handles these big strong ends that they have. Is he bullied? Is he bullied off the ball?
You're talking about Blake Frazier.
Frazier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if Link, how he handles pass pro, because that's the question. I mean, he's run game. He's obviously he does that probably better than any of these guys. But can he hold up in pass pro against these guys? And with Andrew Babalola, it's all about learning curve, man. I mean, it's beyond freshman learning curve with him. You forget that he just jumped into football as a junior in high school.
Right.
A lot of folks just don't. He was a basketball guy. We had 3 freshmen for the first time in on behind a uniform. We typically first 2 seasons we did all kind of returning guys, but we kind of stretched a little bit and did a few of the early enrollees. So we had Andrew Marsh, Andrew Babalola, and Shamari Earls in for part of a mini sort of intro series on behind the uniform. And we were talking to Babalola about kind of where he is in his journey. And he said, kind of learning the game as a junior in high school was a lot coming at him at that time. But he is super smart. Like, the dude is just like super, super smart. So he picks up things really, really quickly. But then you come to Michigan and there's so much more to learn. So much more to learn. But imagine coming to Michigan, and now in this day and age, you can get tutored in the offseason by a guy like Juan Castillo.
Mm-hmm.
So it can speed up that learning curve. So is it sped up enough for him to actually be the guy to start the season, I just, man,
No, he's not going to be able to start the season. He's not going to be ready. We saw him in spring, and I saw like a pretty simple move. Just put him in spin cycle. Andrew Sprague came in last year as one of the more developed offensive tackle prospects. And we saw him available by the bowl game, right? That's how long it took. And by the bowl game, he was doing some things, and he looked smart, and he looked like he belonged out there. And I think he's going to have a breakout season. You know, he's going to be good. But that's
Jerome said he also was injured early too.
Yeah,
set back his curve as well.
Yeah,
he's showing some things early that had him in contention, and then he got hurt, and so that was stymieing.
Anyways, yeah. But Sprague is a guy that, you know, I think that he probably would not have been able to play that well, you know, his first game out. Now we've seen it before. Mason Cole went out and tried to play his first game, and you know that went medium. You know, Zach Zinner was able to play as a true freshman. That went medium. I would say, you know, he held up against Rutgers. We didn't get to see him play against a really great team.
Frizzell Jenkins.
Yeah.
Going back, Frizzell Jenkins.
I think offense is so much more complicated now because the pass sets and the kind of things you get to do in the passing game. The running game's the running game. But I think the things that they do, especially what Michigan does with like the way that they alter. They only have a few certain running plays, but the way that they have variations on those running plays, and if you get it wrong and you go after the wrong guy and you don't, you know, find the spot that you're looking for when they're changing the front on you all the time, it is hard. There was, what was it? I retweeted it this week, and now I forgot what it was. It was like, we're doing algebra with our in a fist fight is what someone described offensive line as. And that's hard to learn. I would not expect Babalola to be ready by Oklahoma. By the end of the season, I think he's going to be your left tackle. To survive until then, how about Evan Link? I mean, I don't think he's going to be a tackle long term. I think that he showed he's not a tackle long term. I think he can be a bully of a guard, but he also lost 4 pounds.
That was my question. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I saw Link up close, not
right in the grocery store.
In the grocery store, and he looked thinner. He looked thinner. He looked more fit. That's all I can say. I think Evan Link is going to be your starter at left tackle on day one. I think that's highly likely. How that goes, I guess we'll wait and see how he's progressed. You know, we'll wait and see. But I think that's your likely starter, I believe, right now at left tackle. I would love it if Evan Link could play center. For example, but I don't think that's in any cards. Yeah.
No, he could play. I would love it if Afobe could play center, and then you could put Link at right or Al Hadi, but they're not. They're guards.
Yeah.
Brady Norton's a guard as well. Brady Norton was up 37 pounds from his last listing, but he told us about that, right? He was like, "Listen, I was not 275 pounds last year. They just didn't update it at Cal Poly for whatever reason." But I don't care if he's 350 pounds. I saw him in the spring game, and he's not going to be a tackle. That's period. Mm-hmm. So I think Evan Link's probably, what you're going to have to go with. I think, fine, you're not going to have a very complicated passing offense in your first game with Bryce Underwood anyway, or your second game with Bryce Underwood. And then as the season progresses, by the time we get to Ohio State, I think Babalola is going to take over at left tackle, and then Evan Link can fight one of the guards for a spot inside. That's got to be what you do. I don't think Evan Link can hold up for a whole season at left tackle and play the way that Michigan's going to want to play. And I don't think that anybody else. No offense to Blake Frazier, who would, I think is going to be a factor next year. But I think it's too early for Blake Frazier. I think he's got to just get bigger and stronger, and that was always going to be the case with him. It's not fair to expect him to win this battle this year when he just needs time to grow into his body, because offensive linemen generally do.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I also see Blake Frazier as more of a guard than a tackle, but I could be wrong.
I think he's got the athleticism for tackle for sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely athletic profile for tackle. It's always been a size thing, putting on weight thing, which some guys it takes them longer to put on the weight than others. Some guys they just pack it on super quick. It's just you know, more of a. I need this guy's metabolism, man. Good grief.
Yeah. You know, Stray. I mean, this is not matter this year, but notice Strayhorn and Gatch both came in at 308. Like you got some guards coming. You got some interior guys coming up who are going to be factors. Jake Guanera actually is another guy who lost weight. By the way, he was at 311, but I think that they kind of wanted him to be around 311. So I'm not stressing over that at all.
Yeah, he's a factor. He's a factor at center. By the way, Sharon made it a point to say that it's not etched in stone. He clearly wants Crippen to be pushed. He doesn't.
Sure. And Seth, what do you think of that? I mean, what did you think of our center play last year?
So I went back because Brian hadn't charted the Ohio State and Alabama game, so I went back and charted those. And Crippen was disappointing in what I wanted to see because he got everything right. He got the calls right.
He understands what he's doing.
Yeah. And when we were talking to the players at the golf outing thing, I think I was mentioned to one player like, "Oh, how do you guys make the line calls?" And he was like, "Oh, talk to Crippen. We ought to just go to Crippen. He knows everything." Right. And that makes sense. He's been around forever. But I think his main problem, and his problem in the Ohio State game and in the Alabama game, was those defensive tackles just ragdolled him. He just didn't have the strength. And again, not his fault. Guys can only get so strong, right? He's been 309 for the last 3 years. That's who he is. And maybe he got a lot stronger, maybe Juan Castillo. But I was hoping Juan Castillo could have a big effect on him because he's had such an effect on previous IMG centers. But I don't think that that's the problem with Crippen. I think Crippen came in from IMG and knew what he was doing and just didn't have the strength. I think they got Olu. Okay, fine. You got Olu, right? You got Nugent. Okay, fine. Nugent's a dude. Last year was kind of I see what they need. What they need is somebody who can move a tackle. And Crippen, unless he's gotten a lot stronger and doesn't really seem like he has, he's going to give you kind of just a moderate ceiling. And if you want to get above that ceiling, you're going to need to push somebody. Do I think it's going to happen this year? Absolutely not. I think Crippen's going to be the guy. I think they're going to get the line calls right. I think that's hugely important when you got a true freshman quarterback, and that just puts a ceiling on your offensive line. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us today, folks. Appreciate you as always. By the way, going to be releasing the first behind the uniform today. We're going to start rolling out the freshmen, get them out first, and it's going to be Andrew Marshall. Be on the lookout for that later on today here on the Michigan Insider YouTube page and on MichiganInsider.com. We'll see you tomorrow on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online on the Big1050.com.